So you found a house, you figured out how much you can put down as a down payment, and then you decide to actually commit and sign the paperwork and you're buying a house. So what you've got to do is figure out what your monthly payments are actually going to be. We did this similar process a few units ago. I don't remember exactly which one, but it was when we were talking about actually getting a loan and how much you really pay back based on how much you borrowed. This is a very similar calculation. The difference is we're dealing with a larger amount of money. Okay, so I don't know if you remember this exactly, but we had a table where we tried to find how much we would pay back if we only borrowed $100. And then we basically figured out, okay, if we borrowed $1,000, that's 10 times the amount that's on our table. And we kind of adjusted it that way. That saved us from having to do these big, nasty formulaic calculations. This is going to be really similar too. So I'm going to give you guys a table of a repayment plan for a $1,000 loan. So if we buy, say, an $80,000 house, we would just multiply what's on that table by 80, right? 80 times 1,000 is 80,000. And it's pretty straightforward once you see it, but it is similar to something that we've done before. So keep that in mind. If you've been doing the work and you've kept up with everything, this will look familiar. Okay. So the idea is, here's the table. And I'll walk you through it as we kind of go. But we've borrowed some money from a bank. Currently, interest rates are much lower than what's listed here. Okay, but this is what we're going to use because this is the table that I had readily available. I'm sure we could find one out there that's a little more applicable to what's going on now. Interest rates are really pretty low right now. I think the most recent one I saw was like 3.5%. So anyway, the interest rate that you get charged from the bank is going to affect how much your loan actually costs you. If you borrow $80,000 from the bank to buy a house, you're going to pay back more than $80,000. Most of that is because a mortgage loan is a very lengthy loan. Typically, a mortgage rate is anywhere between 15 and 30 years. My current house, I'm paying, I'm on year 4 of a 30-year mortgage. I mean, I'm going to be paying on this house for quite some time. That's just the way it is. Car loans, a lot shorter, a lot less money. So keep that in mind, though. I mean, when you buy a house, it's an investment. You're going to be paying on it for a while. You're going to be living in it for a while. It's worth it, in my opinion. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. Here is our typical loan amount if we only borrowed $1,000. Okay, so what's going on here to calculate our monthly payment, we're going to take the total amount of the mortgage. So if it's like an $80,000 house, we would divide that by 1,000, and that's going to help us line up with what's on the table. And then you multiply by the appropriate number out of that table. So if it is a 20-year loan at 6.5% interest, we would multiply that by 7.46. Then to figure out how much you actually pay back to the bank, you figure out how many monthly payments you're going to make and multiply that by what your monthly payment is. So if it is a 30-year mortgage, that is 360 months. 30 years times 12 months in a year, 360 months. 360 times you're going to have to write that check to the bank. And then to figure out the total interest charge, you're going to figure out how much you paid back minus how much you actually borrowed. Okay, these are all very straightforward calculations. So let's actually do an example and hopefully you'll see what's going on here. So all the work I've hidden under this box because I don't want to just overwhelm you all at once. So Carol and Adam Burke have applied for an $80,000 mortgage loan at an annual interest rate of 8%. The loan is for a period of 30 years and is going to be paid back in equal monthly payments that include the interest. So they're not just paying back the money they borrowed, they're money that they borrowed plus interest. So we're going to figure out the total amount of the interest charged. That's kind of the last step. So we have to do everything before then to be able to answer this question. Let's do this. Let's copy this over to the next page here so we have it. Okay, so here's our table. So they're borrowing $80,000 for 8% for 30 years. So 8%, 30 years, here's our magic number. Okay, so we need to be able to figure out what to multiply that by. So they're borrowing $80,000. Okay, so we're going to take their $80,000 and we're going to divide it by 1,000. That's going to make it line up on our table. And then we multiply that by the dollar amount from our table based on how many years and their interest rate. Okay, so if I take that $80,000 and divide it by 1,000, that's 80. So we're going to take 80 times 734 to get our monthly payment amount here. Okay, that is $587.20. Okay, that's really straightforward. 80,000 divided by 1,000 times whatever it says on the table. It's $587.20. So if they write that check every single month to the bank, once a month for 30 years, they're going to multiply that by 360. 12 months in a year, 30 years. So if I take their monthly payment times how many months they write that check, $211,392. That's a lot more than they borrowed. That's more than twice what they borrowed. That's almost 3 times what they borrowed because it's such a lengthy loan. And then to figure out how much interest they paid, you take what they borrowed, $80,000, and you subtract it from what they repaid. So you take that $211,392, subtract $80,000. They wound up paying $131,392 in interest. That's how mortgages work. This is where banks make their money. They're going to make $131,000 off of the Berks because they borrowed money for a house. But I don't have enough money to just go in and buy a house. I have to go to a bank. I have to borrow money. This is how real people have to do it. Okay, that was all worked out for you. So here's one where we're actually going to do the math on it. Okay, so first things first. I'm going to look at my table here. Monthly payment, the amount paid interest. So we're going to do all 3 steps here. An annual interest rate of 5% for 20 years. So 5% for 20 years. 660 is our magic number if you can't see that in the table. So to figure out their monthly payment, I'm going to take $90,000 and I'm going to divide that by 1,000 and then multiply that by $6.60. Grab my handy calculator here. 90 times 660. Their monthly payment is an even $594. Okay? Honestly, that's not that bad. You'd probably be hard-pressed to find a nice place to rent for much less than that. That's the advantage to owning a home. You're putting money into something that you own and you can resell at a later point. So the amount that they repay, so $594, and they're going to do that every month for 20 years. Okay, so pay attention to the term. It's a different term, so you're not going to make as many payments. So $594 times 240, they're paying back $142,560. So they overpaid. I'm going to take what they paid back minus what they borrowed, $90,000. They paid back an extra $52,560. Yeah. So this was a little bit better situation than the Clarks in the last one. Their interest rate was lower. They had a shorter term on their loan by 10 years. So you're talking 240 payments that they didn't make here that the last group did, 10 years, 20 months. Or 120, sorry, not 240. Okay, I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit on this one. I don't know how long this video is so far, but first things first, I'm going to take my dollar amount, $390, divided by 1,000. Oops. So that is 390 times 8% for 25 years, 772. Times 772. Wow. They're paying back $3,010.80 a month. Is that right? That can't be right. 390,000 divided by 1,000 times 772. That's right. That's just a big house payment. More than I could afford. All right. So that payment, $3,010.80, and they're paying that back every month for 25 years. Almost $1 million. $903,240. So So then the last part, I'm going to take what they paid back, 903,240, and subtract what they borrowed, 390,000. 903,240 minus 390,000. They paid back a little over $500,000 in interest, plus what they actually borrowed. Okay, it's similar to what we've done before. Okay, give it a shot.